not anytime soon. This is why flooding persists on the causeway. These are the eastbound lanes of the causeway, and in places water is ankle deep. I am in Foley, on the south side of Foley on County Road 12, where there's just some incredible devastation behind me here. I'm joined now. This is a business owner here in Foley. This is Matthew Rogers. This was his business. And Matthew, you barely escaped with your life.
2 seconds. I was inside. I saw the roof lift off.
Matthew Rogers and his dog Kip here rode out the storm in his shop, thinking that it would be safe in a commercial structure. It turned out to be anything but. Take a look. All of the walls here are blown out. Total devastation here at his shop. And the roof, that's over here across the field.
It was horrific. I barely escaped with my life. 2 seconds, I wouldn't be here.
Rogers says when he saw the roof detach from the walls and levitate in the air, he knew it was time to get out. He bolted out the front door, barely making it to his van.
I dove out and grabbed the whole thing in front of my van here and being pulled through the water. Probably about 2 feet of water out here the whole time, and knew I was going to get struck by some debris, but I didn't.
And we just pulled that down and went up.
Across the highway in this neighborhood, Dottie Weaver and her family got desperate when the floodwaters kept rising in her Foley home. They fled to the attic, but quickly changed their minds.
I was terrified for my life. We finally said it's either we die inside or we die outside, and I wanted to die outside. I was not going to rise up to where I couldn't breathe.
Tonight, thousands of families on the Gulf Coast are cleaning up the devastation Hurricane Sally left behind, but they're just grateful they're alive.
Thank God I made it.
Rogers and Kip managed to make it out of here safely. They were not hurt, but sadly, Rogers says his cat, a calico that was also riding out the storm here, did not make it. In Foley, I'm Andrea Ramey.
Attorney General says pest control company Terminix will be forking out $60 million for engaging in fraudulent business practices.
And tonight, Mobile County's district attorney credits NBC 15's Andrea Ramey for her extensive reporting on the problems consumers were grappling with that got the state's attention.
Andrea continues her investigation with the very latest developments tonight from Montgomery.
Thousands of former and current Terminix customers are impacted by this historic settlement. Customers whose bills skyrocketed, tripling, even quadrupling in cases.
And I'm like, come on, this is absurd.
Last year, we showed you some of the outlandish bills Terminix was charging its customers. They got this bill for their business, $43,000.
I remember one of your stories where there was a woman that was holding a $1,499 increase in her bill, and she couldn't pay it.
District Attorney Ashley Rich says the reports got her attention and prompted other consumers to complain.
It's because of NBC 15 for making this a story and making sure that consumers knew that they needed to come forward and make their complaints, that I went to the Attorney General and asked him to tackle this huge problem.
This truly is a historic day for us in the world of consumer protection.
Today, Attorney General Steve Marshall announced that outside of multi-state settlements, the $60 million settlement with Terminix is the largest the state has ever received. Consumers whose annual bill rose significantly will be getting money back.
Not only did they violate Alabamians' trust, what is clear is they violated the law of this state, and now they are going to pay.
It'll be a while before any checks are cut. The Attorney General says this isn't a fast process, and he says soon there will be advertising to let consumers know how to be part of the settlement. Reporting in Montgomery, Andrea Ramey, NBC 15 News.
Tonight's reality check consumers on the hook for massive medical bills. The federal government says people with private insurance are most at risk for receiving outrageous bills, often tens of thousands of dollars, from air ambulance companies.
NBC 15's Andrea Ramey is investigating and shares one family's horror story. Andrea?
Well, Kim and Greg, imagine getting a $57,000 bill. Could you pay it? The Saucer family says they certainly couldn't, so they fought back, and now they're speaking out, warning others about what they regard as predatory billing and are advocating for change. This little lamb almost didn't get to learn how to play piano. Holland Saucer was born with 6 major heart defects, including being born with only half a heart. a medical condition not at all representative of this loving little girl's true colors.
What makes you you?
Jesus.
In May 2017, Holland stopped breathing in the middle of the night. The family rushed to the hospital and were told Holland had to be transported by air ambulance to a hospital in Atlanta for treatment. There was no other option. Holland's mom, Tanya, says hospital workers told her their insurance approved the transport. But then came the denial letter from her insurance and a big bill from the air ambulance company.
How do we get to $57,000 for a 1-hour flight?
That's right. The saucer's bill was $57,135. Insurance, after much persistence, ultimately covered just $8,900 of that bill, leaving the saucers still on the hook for $48,000, a practice known as balance billing.
It's sickening because you think you're fixing to lose everything you've worked your whole life for.
The saucers certainly aren't alone. A government accountability report found the median price air ambulance companies charge is between $36,000 and $41,000, depending on the type of helicopter used. The report also found it's people like the saucers with private insurance who work and make too much to be on Medicaid that are the most vulnerable to getting these high bills.
This could have bankrupted us very easily. I feel like it's a crooked system.
States have tried and failed to rein in air ambulance abuses. Every time the air ambulance companies win because of a 1978 federal law called the Airline Deregulation Act, which prevents states from regulating prices, routes, and services of air carriers.
We let competition and the free market determine prices.
Now Congress may be stepping in. A special committee is now investigating how to protect consumers from balance billing and will make recommendations to lawmakers. Their first public meeting was last month.
What we are given is the authority to prohibit and take regulatory action, whether by rule or enforcement order, to prevent unfair and deceptive practices in the air transport industry and unfair methods of competition.
Sometimes you'll need to be all alone. Sometimes you'll need a tissue.
Change, if it happens, will come too late for the Saucer family, who wound up settling with their air ambulance company for an undisclosed amount. A family that's paid dearly for Holland's heart.
I feel like there's a loophole, and this loophole needs to be dealt with.
Now, an industry trade group, the Association of Air Medical Services, says it welcomes a review of their industry. In a statement, the group said, quote, patients should not be burdened by balance bills when their insurers refuse to adequately cover the costs of their emergency medical services. If these practices are allowed to continue, the entire emergency air ambulance system in the United States would be at risk. Kim? The show gets unprecedented access, documenting the critical first 48 hours of an investigation after a murder. While the show explicitly states defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty, the access and what is aired on national TV prior to trial raises serious questions about the show's presence in the port city.
What's your name?
Frederick.
What's your last name, Frederick?
Knight.
This first 48 episode aired 18 days before the suspect featured in it, Frederick Knight Jr., was set to go on trial in Mobile for murder.
He pretty much broke down, said he shot this girl, and said that he was there.
The show makes it appear the case is airtight. Police have their man.
Inside, officers find a .40 caliber pistol.
The vehicle matches the vehicle we saw on video. You can tell that front tire, the hubcap is zip tied on there.
They're saying things that are really damning towards your client.
And what the general public doesn't understand is that's entertainment. That is nothing more than a TV show, okay? It is not a trial. He has not been proven guilty. As a matter of fact, he's presumed innocent.
Attorney Chase Dearman represents Knight and takes major issues with how his client was portrayed on national television.
Horrified, actually, because it does nothing but poison the jury pool.
A&E's entertainment show gets unprecedented access to crime scenes. While local reporters and the public are kept behind crime scene tape, police allow the First 48 crew to walk right up to the victim laying in the street to get their close-up. The show also airs material the general public rarely has access to.
Right now, you look like an animal.
Like police interrogations,
and he shot her.
911 calls and surveillance video. In fact, when NBC 15 News requested some of the material that has already aired on the First 48, a police spokesperson declined our request. The reason given, the cases we'd asked about, quote, are still pending trial.
Some of what they hear may not be admissible in court, and some of what they hear may not be relevant at all to the case.
But prosecutors and police argue the show does not impede a defendant from getting a fair trial.
It's not tainting our jury pool.
Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich says there's a process before a trial begins where potential jurors are asked if they know anything about the case.
And we certainly don't want anyone that serves on jury duty to have some kind of preconceived notion about a case. And so if they do, then they're not asked to serve.
The show has created issues in other cities.
All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion carries.
In 2018, Miami leaders approved a $1.3 million settlement to Taiwan Smart, who was wrongly accused of murder in a First 48 episode.
The settlement is covered by insurance?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yes.
I know already. It just threw me up.
To film something in such a manner and to release it prior to trial, it cannot be said that it does not infringe upon his right to a fair trial, which is the most fundamental aspect of our Constitution.
Mobile's police chief declined to do an interview with us about the First 48. Here's why. We refused to sign this document, waiving our right to ask him about another topic that we're currently investigating. A&E Networks had no comment.
NBC 15's Andrea Ramey reported on the fair trial issues defense attorneys have with the show last night.
Andrea, this juror saw your report and came to us with those troubling accusations.
That's right, Greg and Kim. This juror says at least 2 fellow jurors admitted they watched the First 48 episode that featured the case that was in their hands, violating a direct order from the judge.
Caesar, come here. Oh, he running.
The second episode of the First 48, featuring Mobile police, aired October 2017, detailing a double murder in a Tolmanville bank parking lot. Police zero in on suspects Caesar Harris and Anthony Ford.
Caesar's friends are 20-year-old Anthony Ford and
Harris eventually pleaded guilty to murder, but Ford fought the murder charges in his trial last year. Karen Laggio says she and 10 other jurors were prepared to vote not guilty when they broke for the weekend. There was one holdout, she says. But when they came back the following Monday to resume deliberations, there were now 2 more jurors who thought Ford was guilty. What changed their minds?
I think it was the show The First 48.
Laggio says despite the judge telling them not to watch the First 48 over the weekend, jurors openly admitted while they were deliberating they had.
And their reaction to it was, like you didn't. I think it had a big impact.
Laggio says jurors butted heads over what to consider, what they'd heard in court versus what they saw in the First 48 episode.
Why do you want to believe you? Because you are lying, that's why.
We kept going over and over the evidence, trying to tell them, you're not going by what the evidence is showing. You're going by what you say you feel. That's not evidence. Well, I seen this and they didn't show this, and you can't go by that.
The case ended with a hung jury and a judge declaring a mistrial. Today, the Mobile County District Attorney said she was, quote, very concerned not about the First 48, but about allegations that a juror violated a direct court order. Laggio says she eventually watched the First 48 episode after she was dismissed as a juror and now believes changes should be made when the episodes air.
Especially after serving on something like this, they should wait until they have a fair trial, then show the First 48.
Ford's attorney says he just hopes in the next trial jurors obey the judge's instructions. Meanwhile, Ford is out on bond awaiting a new trial.